Thank you. That was beautiful. We will sing the Lord's Prayer and not the meditation hymn because Linda is doing the lesson called Inch by Inch, and she will do the meditation after her lesson.
So we're shaking things up a little bit again today. Who would know it come from me? Sometimes I'm so proud of myself. I want to thank everybody for being here on time today. We were all give ourselves a pat on the back and a clap that we set our clocks ahead and we got here. Woo-hoo! And while I was getting ready this morning, I had all the clocks changed, but except for the one on the wall. And guess which one I was constantly looking at this morning and almost got here late? Yeah. When I first heard Spirit plant the seed thought of inch by inch in my ear, and it literally was in my ear, I had this subtle shift in my heart center, and then I had this twinge in the side of my head. And I thought, oh, this isn't good. And I soon come to discover that that twinge was an indication that I was going to be on doing some personal work. So the lyrics to the garden song that we know, most of us know, and I knew it as the song of Inch by Inch. Now I've always loved this song, and it's a simple song, but it resonated with me. But it was only in this last year or so that I started noticing how my body was literally responding to the music. And I thought, well, that's different. But then I got thinking, gosh, when we have Vita singing, Joel singing, Rod singing up here, they're sitting in this meditative place and tears are running down their eyes. Music is meditation, especially when it resonates right here in the heart. As a child, we had well over an acre of gardens. That's what we lived on. But also, that garden was a lot of work, let me tell you. And I really loved the end results from all that gardening because, you know what? The flavors of the fruits and the vegetables, and we call it organic now. Back then, it was just natural. Now, I love cucumbers. But, I dreaded the harvesting of those darn things. See, you got to understand, my mother raised cucumbers so we could sell them at the local canning factory. So those little number 1s and number 2 pickles that you get in the grocery store, I picked those. And we didn't have gloves. And those little skins of those little number 1s and number 2s had little pricklers on those little pickles. And have you ever had a cucumber vine? Did you know how rough the cucumber leaf in the vine is? Not a pleasant adventure. Yeah. There is one thing I learned, though, with weeding and gardening. If you're weeding and it comes out easily, it's not a weed. And if you're weeding too long, all the plants begin to look the same. Oh, yeah, how many times my mother said, Linda, watch what you're picking. Gardening takes knowledge, and it takes a lot of hard work. You need to know how to prepare the soil, the seeds, when to plant, when to water, weeding, harvesting, everything right down to preparing it for your table. Unlike several of my friends here who are master gardeners, I am far from a master gardener. I put it in the ground. I love it. If it does, the weeds do great. You and I, we are the many varieties of produce and flowers. And how many types of vegetables are there? How many types of tomatoes, beans, peas, cauliflower, eggplant? There's a variety of types of one vegetable. How many variety of flowers, trees, and bushes are there? All over the world, we have this wide variety, and they don't distract from each other. They complement each other. If you ask a master gardener if a plant isn't growing, they'll probably tell you the soil needs a little nutrients, or it's in the wrong soil, or even in the wrong zone. Am I correct, Annie? Mm-hmm. I've discovered my yard doesn't support some plants. Ugh. Each person, in his or own uniqueness, have different growing patterns, and you grow according to your DNA. You put us all together, and we make quite a fine salad. And then there are a few nuts that we like to put in there just for a little zip. See, I have a lot of nuts for friends. Love this. Upon my research, I discovered that grafting is mentioned in the ancient biblical text. For those of you who don't have a clue what grafting is, it is taking two plants, slicing them at the joint, wrapping them together so the natural veins actually fuse together. And what this does, and I'm going to speak it, and I'm going to read it, because if I tried to explain this in my own words, you'd be going, huh? Grafting transfers the specialized DNA in the plant that can conduct photosynthesis. The DNA and the entire cell nucleus containing the genome, potentially making a new species. Thus, grafting is a form of natural genetic engineering. Oh no! Tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants, and watermelons are often grafted. And just a few weeks ago, while listening to the Garden Talk on NPR, I found out that most fruit trees are grafted. I mean, this is really kind of cool information. I mean, nature still has to have a lot of help. But what is the advantage of grafting for disease-resistant rootstock? Now, I want you to remember disease-resistant rootstock. Metaphysically, if unity is the soil base, is unity the only soil base or just a portion of the whole? Does it need fertilization from time to time? How much water and sunlight is needed? Are we the seed or the gardener? Metaphysically, what do we need to graft? See, we are like the plants. Some do better in different soil. Some need sandy soil, some not. Some need more sun, others more shade. Some seeds need to lay dormant over the winter so the shell has a time to soften and break open to germinate. Others need a trace of soil. Others need to be planted deeper. Some plants take months to mature, and others only a few weeks. It is through this trial and error that the gardener discovers which plants are compatible with each other and to the land. The point of the garden is to feed our bodies and our souls with nourishment, beauty, and resting in the moonlight. Resting is extremely important. Taking care of yourself is vital to the growth of the plant. See, our personal healing work feeds the garden of the soul. Unity and its people are the garden, but we're far from the only garden in the world. See, the Fillmores read and they studied and they practiced many different cultural and spiritual practices. And in this practice, they grafted cultural beliefs and thoughts that were compatible to their own life and their own writings. And we need to do the same thing if we want to remain disease resistant. What happens when one garden thinks that it's better than another garden? What happens if the green pepper says to the cucumber, your shade of green is slightly off? Sounds a little funny, doesn't it? But we do that to each other all the time because we're comparing. Now I almost changed the title for today to comparing apples to oranges, but I decided not to because I didn't want to get another twinge. But when somebody says that we're going to compare it to apples to oranges, we all go, oh yeah, I know what that means, right? Do we really? Because here you have they're both fruits. They're both kind of round in shape. But what else? How do you compare that? How do you compare one flower to the other flower? With the fruit, you compare by the nutrients. What is the nutritional value? And the flowers, it's about their beauty. And when we start comparing, now we're tipping on that edge of judging. It is your viewpoint. That's all it is. It's your viewpoint. It's your perception. And we need to begin to practice appreciating what each plant has to offer. Because when we do, we create a place of harmony and co-creation. Let's take a look at what the seed represents. The seed represents our human aspects, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs, individually and as a collective. All of us share different emotions, but we all share hate, anger, fear, frustration, judgmental, and unforgiving behaviors. But we also share love, joy, peace, empathy, forgiveness. The question is, what are you going to nurture into fruition? See, ignoring emotions can be just as destructive as paying too much attention to them. Because when we allow our emotions to overrule our actions, then no matter how well intended they are, you are going to create dis-ease. Now, some weeds are absolutely beautiful. I look at the bull thistle. I love the bull thistle because it's just beautiful. But leave it to its own devices, will take over your yard. Just look at my yard, and if it weren't for the broadleaves, I'd have no yard at all. And I refuse to use all those weed killers because I have pets and birds. So, broadleaves, here it is. See, weeding and pruning our emotions helps to maintain a balance. And this takes looking in the mirror, and sometimes that mirror could use a little Windex. Really hard to pick up that bottle of Windex and wipe that mirror off sometimes. See, Spirit is our master gardener, and we are the partner. In short, we are co-creating. Now, in the book, The Isaiah Effect, many of us were in a book group together, and what we did is we looked really at the difference between a thought, an emotion, and a feeling. And I loved how Greg Braden uncovered what he believes to be the difference. Emotion is the power source that drives us forward towards our goals. Thought is our guidance system that directs our emotions. And feeling is the combination of emotion and thought. See, unity is the soil and one of many garden plots that allows us to tend to the collective needs and to our own personal needs. But learning and expanding is the grafting process, like our founders, the Fillmores, did. Now, Greg Braden also wrote, "We are the seeds, whole and complete, carrying something greater. The seeds within the seed. These are the emotions, the thoughts, and the feelings. The Essenes believe that we commune with the world through our perceptions and senses. Every thought, feeling, emotion, breath, nutrient, or movement was an expression of prayer. Therefore, we are always praying. In all things we do all day, we are tending our garden." This doesn't mean we ignore our human emotions. But what we need to do is we need to acknowledge them and then find a way to expel them from our body, sending them to the compost pile so they can be transformed and healed. Because science has proven that when you heal your past emotional experiences that you are so attached to, it actually changes your DNA. We can change our DNA. And one of the stories that Greg Braden speaks of is with a man called David. Now, David's ancestors lived on and with the land around Santa Fe, New Mexico. And there was a drought, and rain was really, really needed. And David asked Greg if he wanted to go with him to the place of his ancestors where they prayed. And Greg writes, "Even the way that he untied the laces of his tattered work boots was a prayer, methodical, intentional, and sacred." He goes on to explain that every act was in reverence to David's ancestors and in prayer. It only took a few minutes for David to pray his prayer the way his ancestors had taught him. David prayed rain. He imagined how the rain felt on his face, how the rain smelled, and he felt the mud squeezing up through his toes, and the children playing in the rain, and how the people and the animals were happy for the rain. He visualized his prayer through all his senses. Now, the rains came within 24 hours, and the weathermen have no idea why the storm that was north took a detour. But they got rain. See, David prayed rain, not for rain. His ancestors taught him that when we ask for something, we acknowledge what we do not have. What we desire already exists. When we ask for something, we are acknowledging its non-existence. David goes on to say, the path between man and the forces of this world begins in our heart. In my prayer, I began with gratitude for all that is and all that has come to pass. I give thanks for the desert wind, the heat, and the drought, for that is the way of it. Until now, it is not good. It is not bad. It has been our medicine. David's prayer resonated so deeply with me because about 2017, you know how years pass? When I first started this journey into the healing arts aspect, I was with an individual who was so caught up in their past, and I didn't know what to pray. And so and it came to me just out of my mouth. And we give thanks for all that was, all that is, and all that shall be. Nobody taught me that. Spirit led me to say that. And I say it all the time. Because ingratitude is shown when you accept that what was uncomfortable, what is uncomfortable, is your medicine. Meditation can be in showing reverence in your movements. Pray and ask for what that already exists. Affirmation needs to resonate within your heart, otherwise it's just empty words. And Greg Braden says that prayer is to us as water is to the seed of the plant. Prayer to us is like the water is to the seed of the plant. Gratitude, meditation, prayer, affirmations are the tools that we have to prune, weed, and cultivate through passion and through love. Another author that came to me as I do a lot of reading, obviously. Ellen Langer says, our perception is based more on expectation and belief than on independent interpretation. I'll say that one more time. Our perception is based more on expectation and belief than on independent interpretation. Now, how often do we find ourselves reacting to Facebook posts or gossip because of our emotional fears and needing to compare the rights and the wrongs? Just like that green pepper saying to the cucumber that the color was slightly off. We compare ourselves and then we attach to what somebody else is saying. And we're not really independent thinking. We're going with the masses. See, we really haven't fully grasped the idea that emotion, thought, and feeling are not the same. It's like comparing the apples to the oranges. See, we have been practicing practical thinking, and we have been wordsmithing, but we have forgotten the heart, and that all our senses need to be involved, because your whole body is engaged in the process, but we have shut it off. I have another story. There was a farmer who had this dream. He bought this old farm because he wanted to have a thriving enterprise. Now, that farm, the farmhouse was all run down. The fences were in ill repair. The fields were overgrown with weeds. And on the first day that he is on this farm, the local minister comes in and says, let me pray with you. And he says, may you and God work together to make this farm of your dreams. A couple of months later, the minister comes back, and the farmhouse is in perfect order. The fences have been repaired. There's cattle in the pens. The fields have all been planted. And minister says, wow, look what you and God have done together. And the farmer, bless his heart, says, yes, Reverend. But remember what the farm was like when God was working it alone. We depend on God to do it while we're sitting there. See, God and Spirit cannot repair and build without your helping hand and your intentions, because that is what co-creating is all about. So while the farmer put in a lot of physical labor, but he was passionate and he put it into action. David could have prayed for rain in his easy chair, but he hiked out to his ancestors' sacred land, and every step, every action was a prayer and meditation. And I think that's why some of us like Tai Chi so much. It's because it's in the movements. It's a prayer. Both the farmer and David were fueled by their power source, emotion of reverence, gratitude, and action. They couldn't take it into fruition just by emotion alone. They had to use the combination of all their senses. And I haven't met a farmer or gardener yet that does not have a deep respect for the land, the plants, the animals, the sun, the moon, the rain. They have a connection that many of us may never understand. But the power source is your passion for what you are cultivating. You've got to have a passion. And sometimes that passion changes, and that's okay. Sometimes the passion kind of goes dormant for a while, and that's okay too. But let's face it, it isn't easy to be in reverence 100% of the time, especially when your body hurts. People are in your face, pushing your buttons. You know what I'm talking about. And when you look at your fingernails and your emotions and the dirt is so embedded in them, you think you're never going to get it clean. It's just temporary. I just cut them back a little further. To be in gratitude when the rain doesn't come or comes too often. To be in gratitude when life feels like the pits. But we have forgotten how tasty those cherries were to get to the pits. So what do we do with the pits? We wash them up, prepare them, and replant them. To be appreciative that all experiences in life is our medicine. And haven't you heard your parents say, well, if it tasted good, it wouldn't work so well? Some of that stuff was really bad. The question is, are you going to nurture your garden and all that grows within it? How do you see the person in the next row, across the street, across town? How do you see your government, your bosses, your coworkers, the people of other faiths and beliefs? How are you allowing unhealed past emotional experiences to entangle themselves in your garden? Here is the good news. We are in this together. Everyone in this room has something to offer in personal and spiritual growth, one-on-one or collectively. Now, all you have to do is recognize that weeding out personal past hurts in your life experiences is possible by exploring gratitude of that experience as medicine. Instead of looking at it with anger and hatred, look at it with gratitude because it is your medicine. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow because I was so justified. And so were they. Using the rake and the hoe in meditation and in reverence and possibly some therapy with someone one-on-one will help weed out these emotions. Lifting your face up to the sun and to the rain, to walk in reverence, resting in the moonlight. All things are within reach when tending your garden. And I cannot stress this enough. Self-care is vitally important for tending that garden. Unity of Sheboygan is our garden. Our families are our garden. Friends, people of the world are our gardens. And we need to tend to their needs. Our needs to be the example for others. And we need to be mindful of our words, our thoughts, our actions, because the other gardens are watching us. We are being watched. We need to be the example. And it's not always easy, but it is a garden worth tending. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow.